And now, running for governor as a Democrat, Ms. Zephyr Teachout.
I want to answer the last question of the audience member because it gets a little confusing when it comes to me. My name is Zephyr Teachout. That is not a made-up name. The last name is probably Dutch. We've been around for a long time. And the first name, is this better? Is that better? Okay, I'll repeat it. My name, because I want you to remember it on September 9th. My name is Zephyr Teachout. The first name is Greek, although my parents just liked it. And I am indeed challenging Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary to be the next governor of the state of New York. I am a very traditional Democrat, and I have a vision of this state where we have the best public schools in the country, with small class sizes for every kid, and art and music and sports. I have a vision of this state where we invest in our public transportation. We have one of the largest transportation economies in the world. We're 10 billion short on the MTA and billions more short on the rest of our transportation economy, and we can invest in it and make New York State the hub of high-tech 21st century transportation. I have a vision that we ban fracking and move towards renewable energy. And I have a, pretty traditional vision that all of these things are higher priorities than tax breaks for big banks and tax breaks for millionaires. So I am running against Andrew Cuomo because I think New York is a first-rate state which has third-rate politics, and there's an old boys club in Albany, and I want to go in there and break it up. I'm a law professor at Fordham. I study corruption. I was previously the national director of the Sunlight Foundation, one of the largest anti-corruption groups in the country. I started a group dedicated to breaking up big banks after 2008. And my writing on corruption has been cited by the Supreme Court in dissent in Citizens United. Justice Stevens cited it so extensively that Scalia thought he had to call it out and say just how much he disagreed with it. So I've got the right enemies.
30 seconds.
So I supported Andrew Cuomo 4 years ago. I was very excited about it. As a kid growing up in Vermont, I had adored his father. And I was excited that he said he was going to clean up Albany. Well, he hasn't. And he's broken so many promises about corruption in Albany and then broken the fundamental promise of, I believe, being a Democrat. And in the last few weeks, I not only received the endorsement of NOW and the endorsement of the Sierra Club, but today the New York Times refused to endorse Andrew Cuomo, and I'll leave the remainder for questions out of respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, question. Governor Cuomo has signed legislation to legalize the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. The current list of medical conditions that have so far been approved for marijuana prescription include cancer, HIV, AIDS, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, spinal cord tissue damage, epilepsy, inflammatory bowel disease, including Crohn's, neuropathies, and Huntington's disease. And the Department of Health will have the option of adding diseases as they see fit. However, the law does not allow any type of marijuana that will be smoked. Yes. It either has to be edible form or liquid form. So do you think that that law is too restrictive? Do you think it represents a responsible balance? And what revisions, if any, would you suggest be made to the law?
You are always going to know where I stand on issues. I think this law is way too limited. I believe we have to move towards decriminalization and legalization, and the only question is how we legalize in a way that makes sure that Big Pharma doesn't take over the legalization. That is my only question. That the current laws as they stand divide people along class lines, because not everybody can afford an inhaler, and so if they are smoking, they are more likely to get arrested. And unfortunately, they're used in ways that disproportionately affect kids of color and are used as laws that actually divide us instead of bring us together. A majority of New Yorkers support marijuana legalization, and I'm very clear on that. And I would welcome the opportunity to have an open public debate with Andrew Cuomo about what we should do on marijuana legalization, decriminalization, and the use of medical marijuana. But as today, he has so far, despite calls by the New York Times and New York One, he is refusing to debate his primary opponent.
First of all, hi, my name is Phil, and I'd like to thank you very much for coming to Bay Terrace. We appreciate you taking your time to come to our neighborhood.
I'm thrilled.
And I apologize in advance. I have the longest question of all for you. So I will try and be as brief as I can.
All right.
Due to changes in FAA flight operations over Northeast Queens, the Bay Terrace community has experienced an unprecedented increase in noise pollution and related issues. Local community groups like Queens Quiet Skies and elected officials have worked collaboratively to attempt to resolve them. The present governor of New York has heard us and has directed the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to conduct a Part 150 study and to establish a community aviation roundtable to mitigate issues. However, there has been little progress after nearly 1 year. What kind of assurances can you give us here tonight that if you replace the current governor, you would be sensitive to our community's concerns and not to the aviation industry's interest of increased flight operations to the detriment of the quality of life of residents below these new flight operations?
Well, thank you for the question, and I'm sorry for those of you who are experiencing this. It is a new issue for me. So I can tell you how I would approach things. One, I have spent my life taking on concentrated power. So if the problem here is that there's too much concentrated power that has too much political sway, you know that's not a fight that I'm going to be scared to have. Two, Andrew Cuomo has a tendency to create commissions. Can I leave it there? With predetermined results to strong-arm commissioners to lead to certain conclusions, or to create commissions to avoid issues that he doesn't want to take a political stand on. I can tell you, this actually relates to my first question, is that you'll always know where I stand. I'd have to look into the issue, but then you will know where I stand and what direction I would move in, because that kind of silence doesn't help you move forward. If you don't have answers, you can't figure out what the next way to solve your problem might be. Silence.
Okay, I know you have other commitments tonight, so one more question now that I absolutely want to ask. As governor, would you put forward a budget proposal that included protections for school co-locations, as happened in this budget proposal?
So I am opposed to school co-locations. I have a very strong, and we may disagree on this, I'll tell you where I stand on it. I have a very strong commitment to public education. 94% of our kids are in public schools. We're not, and I think what we see happening is experimentation when actually what we need is funding. We're $6 billion short on funding our schools. The teachers need small classrooms, they need art, they need music, and I think that's where our focus should be. And once we have that focus, you're going to find a lot less interest in co-locations because there's going to be a lot more excitement and engagement in the public schools where we can have the best in the country. Thank you so much for your time, for your extremely intelligent questions, and I hope you join the National Organization of Women and the Sierra Club and so many other New Yorkers in supporting my campaign.
You actually have a 2-minute closing if you'd like.
Oh, I have a 2-minute closing.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you. And thanks for the questions. I want to talk a little bit about what happened with the Moreland Commission because as you guys know, well, maybe you don't know, but my history is as somebody who's been really focused on the questions of corruption and money and politics. I just wrote a book called Benjamin Franklin's Corruption in America, looking at the history, especially the founding era, and how much the people who framed the Constitution wrote and thought about corruption. And when we designed our Constitution, we designed it to protect against big money taking over the political system. So I was telling you before that I was very excited about Andrew Cuomo when he ran for office because he said he was going to clean up Albany. He said he was going to do something about this real disease of corruption that we have in our political system. But then, not only did he fail to pass the reforms, but he created an anti-corruption commission, which he then shut down when it got too close to his own friends. And then there's an extraordinary New York Times story looking into the fact and showing that his top aide had actually interfered, saying which subpoenas should be issued and which subpoenas shouldn't be. But I'll tell you what I think is the most extraordinary thing about what happened in this whole scandal is not what happened, but the silence of Andrew Cuomo ever since that. It has been 5 weeks since this story broke, and he has refused to answer questions of the press about what he knew and when he knew it, about whether or not he was using the Moreland Commission as a way to protect his close friends. And we can disagree on all kinds of different policy issues. You'll know I'm a traditional Democrat, but we might disagree on some issues. But I will tell you, as a New Yorker, I will not avoid the hard questions. I will answer those questions, and I see it as a failure of leadership, his silence on the Moreland Commission, because it is a failure to do the most basic thing, which is to take action and then to explain yourself. Thank you very much.